What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. I'm back from a week of golf down in North Carolina. Took 1 week off, and look what's happening. Blown Achilles all over the countryside.
It's sad.
Phil,
it's
Perry.
sad.
Sorry.
It's sad.
Phil,
It's sad.
I know. And I'm not going to get into a whole Celtics thing, but I don't care how many points, rebounds, steals, blocks, and assists he had. That game was going down in flames last night.
Glasses are
And
off.
Jayson Tatum was holding the flamethrower beginning at about the 3:43 mark after he hit that 9-time pivot fall away off 1 foot from about 15 feet, and it went in. Jayson Tatum! I was like, that was a horrible shot. And then he proceeded to take horrible shot after horrible shot after horrible shot to close the quarter, because he would walk the ball up, dribble until there were 8 seconds left on the shot clock, then hoist another one, which meant the Knicks had to do nothing on defense but stand there and rest, score down the other end, bring the crowd further into it, put wind in their sails. So by the time the Achilles popped, they were down like 7.
You're so wrong
you
on
want
this.
to talk about box scores?
You're so wrong on this.
I'm absolutely not. I mean, you're a non-ball knower if you think otherwise.
The man was he was the Human Torch for 3.5 quarters in that game.
Throw it to their chances with that ridiculous.
He missed 5 threes from the end of the third and into the early part of the fourth. 5 possessions. Where
how many passes on those possessions?
Maybe you're scoring
like maybe one or two
on like 3 of those. Yeah, they're bad possessions. They're bad. They're bad. They're bad shots. Bad shots and bad possessions. Tom, he's the only guy who showed up to play in that game. The only one. So to sit there and look at him as the problem, Jaylen Brown's staring you right in the face. You've never had an issue with going after Jaylen Brown before.
Slander Jaylen Brown.
Kristaps Porzingis is out there. He doesn't even know how to move his arms and legs anymore, apparently, because he can't breathe.
Cough or something.
Well, good for him. Get him off the floor, Joe Mazzulla. He's in my sights before Jayson Tatum. 5 bad shots. Okay, you take it when the guy is making literally everything. He's throwing it back behind his head practically and walking away with explosions in the background for 3.5 quarters. You allow him to take a couple of bad shots. Everybody else needed to show up.
The same thing cost in the first 2 games. You would think that if you put your hand on the fire twice, you'd realize, it's probably hot if I do this again. No, I'm just going to keep taking step-back threes. What's the worst that could happen? I'm going to keep standing here dribbling.
He made a bunch of them.
Like I haven't a care in the world. 45 feet from the friggin' hoop. Boy,
listen, that's not just on him, though.
Aren't you just sitting there? If you're the Knicks at that point, aren't you just sitting there saying, oh, my God, thank God he's just standing there dribbling.
Isn't that
all
their
I
whole...
can do right now is just sit there and regain my energy.
Isn't that the problem, though? That's their offense. So I don't even put that just on him. That's their whole offense. They don't play a functional brand of basketball. So even when he's scoring all those points, it's not like the beautiful game. He's pulling up and he's making ridiculous shot after ridiculous shot. So what do you do in that situation? I guess you just keep taking ridiculous shots. Because Joe Mazzulla is certainly not going to have him do anything else. They're certainly not going to run a play. That would be beyond the pale.
Do they ever say that was a really difficult shot? I know you made it, but that was a really difficult shot. We might want to try and hunt another one there.
I don't think so.
I mean, the only shot that he didn't take in that stretch was taken by Porzingis, which was a baseline goofus
fall away
looking thing.
Ridiculousness.
Yeah, remember? Like, it's funny when the shit hits the fan, you remember every trip down the court.
Well, by
the time
he literally did nothing all game. Yeah.
Jaylen Brown, Mike Greenwelled him. Do you remember Mike Greenwell?
Of course, the Gator.
Yeah, well, the Gator was renowned for running over teammates in the outfield, and Jaylen Brown used to run over teammates at a much higher rate. A couple of years ago, he wiped out Tatum during a playoff game, I think. just crushed him on the sideline, headlong, gaitored him. He didn't fully gator him yesterday, but how that ball turned into basically Brown got the pass from Tatum and then looked like he tried to run a lateral. Ball's on the ground. If he could have completed a dribble, Tatum would still be playing right now. Of course, it would have lost that game. They'd be 3-1.
That is true. That is true. They would have lost anyway. But you're right. I mean, the bad time for the worst hands in the league version of Jaylen Brown to show up.
We've seen him before. But the Celtics will always have 2023 and 2024. They will always have that. Sublime efforts. You just build the whole team around Pritchard on Wednesday night, by the way, too. If you can't move the ball via the pass, then let Pritchard just be a little burrowing animal. Let him take threes, let him penetrate, let him finish, let him do the Steve Nash whirl around, cycle it around underneath, find people. Because if you're not going to pass the basketball and it's just going to be run horns up at the top, it's trash. Phil was at the Patriots rookie minicamp last week. I was not. I was on a golf trip in North Carolina. At my age, 57, I'm entitled to take some, folks.
How are you doing it right now, by the way? Are you feeling well rested, or are you tired? I was so excited to hear from you on our conference call earlier today, our digital conference call, which I look forward to every week, and I know you do too. And you were on it, but then we didn't hear from you, so I was a little bit concerned that maybe the trip had taken a lot out of you.
I'm going to be candid here. That was some 57-year-old behavior by me. We have a 2:00 conference call. I had just had a large sandwich, which I always have, was salami, turkey on wheat bread, 3 slices of American cheese, mayonnaise, and mustard. Polished that off, then finished off the white cheddar Cheez-Its, then went over and got the baked Lay's, sea salt and vinegar, trundled into my room, closed the door, laid down, dialed up the phone at 202, put it on my chest so I could listen to the beginning portion of the conference call. Did some revisiting about the things that have gone well and not gone well, our coverage hits and misses from the last week. And the last thing I remember hearing was that it should be an interesting offseason. And then I faded off, Phil.
You went to another room, you faded off, or you
No, I fell asleep. I fell dead asleep. And I woke up at 2:42. And when I looked at my phone at 2:22, our boss, who I have great respect for and enjoy a lot, he's a good friend in addition to being my boss, said either you can't hear us or we can't hear you, because apparently he was trying to come to me.
Oh, many times. Many times. And I think he actually thought, because you shared your Jayson Tatum thoughts and your take on an email, I think he thought you're not contributing to the conference call when asked was your form of silent protest. You were just so upset with Tatum and anyone who might defend him that you just weren't even going to talk to us on this conference call. But no, it turns out you were unconscious.
I was unconscious.
Just horizontal.
Ironically, after I sent the email explaining my feelings about the game, despite the situation that occurred with the injury, because I did this with Drew Bledsoe. I'll never forget the day he got his aorta severed. I walked into the press box and I was going behind Ron Borges' seat. And I said, just because the quarterback got a boo-boo, I didn't know how bad it was. Just because the quarterback got a boo-boo, don't be too nice to him. He sucked. Borges flipped out. So same thing. You got to shoot it straight. Got to shoot it straight. Blown Achilles or no. 42 points or no. He was not good. He was the guy who lit the torch.
A couple bad decisions in there. He was also the only one playing defense. I'll just add that too. Nobody played a lick of defense except for Jayson Tatum. Had a couple blocks, couple steals. No, not a single lick. Unbelievable. I'm mad at everyone else today on that team.
So I slept right through it. So Kevin, if you're listening, it's all on me. But again, that's 57-year-old behavior. I mean, play a 57-year-old. You got to take the experience, but you're also going to take the need for rest.
Who would have thought? After salami, 3 slices of cheese, Cheez-Its, and baked Lay's, and then lying down, and then lying down with the phone on your stomach, on your sternum somewhere, that you would have fallen asleep. I could never have predicted that. It's just stunning to hear that in those sequence of events, things played out the way they did.
Here's what I would have said. Tom, what do you got? Patriots, I'm going to pod with Phil today at 3. We're going to talk about rookie minicamp. Also going to talk a little bit about Belichick and his fortunes down in North Carolina and whether or not there's any way that anyone can envision him possibly coaching in the NFL again, because I think that door is closed and welded shut. So we're going to get to that. But first, let's talk about rookie minicamp. Like I said, I was down in North Carolina. I was playing golf. I got a new hat. It's from Tobacco Road. It's my best round of the weekend for a week. You know, I play a lot of golf, so I should be good at golf. And I played really good at Tobacco Road, which is good because it's 145 slope. We played it from the second to the longest tees. And you know what the nose shot out there? Shot a 40 on the front. Shot a 42 on the back. That's with a lost ball, 2 lost balls. So I could have broken 80 there. We ended up with an 82.
It's very impressive.
Put that in your pipe and smoke.
That's
also
a nice shot.
Shot a 92. 92 the last day at Mid-South. So there was a wide array of scores. But I'll tell you, that was a good friggin' time, guy.
I'm proud of you. I'm very happy for you. I know how much you love your golf. And it seems as though you've maybe even gotten some new gear. So because we've got a fresh cap for people that watch the Patriots Talk podcast on YouTube. We've never seen this cap from Tom before. I said he looked like Gary Player. He's the man in black. What is that?
That's
what are
from
we?
Tobacco Road.
Tobacco Road. Okay.
Yep.
Is it a skull?
Yeah. No, it's a I think it's some kind of a deer skull.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if it was living or dead, but yeah, that's a.
No, that is a doornail. That's a Mike Strand's design. One of the great architects of our time or of any time. Died at just 50 years old. Mike Strands did, but not before he was able to fashion Tobacco Road down in Sanford, North Carolina. Also Tot Hill Farm in North Carolina. He's also got some courses over to the Myrtle Beach area, Poly Plantation in Carolina. Okay, Phil, you were at the rookie minicamp last week, and folks, this is what Phil had to say about what he observed from Mike Vrabel.
But boy, the man is nonstop. He is. Then give him a lozenge. Somebody, if you're listening to this podcast and you see Mike Vrabel later today, toss that man some sort of pain reliever for the throat specifically, because he is at a high volume and he is constantly saying something to someone.
Phil, give me your impressions, not imitations. Give me your impressions of that Patriots rookie minicamp and the tenor of it.
Yeah, listen, it is what it is. It's shorts and T-shirts, helmets on, right? And there's a lot of guys out there that are not going to be professional football players probably in the near future. I had a handful of tryout players there, and obviously a number of drafted and undrafted rookies. But to me, the most interesting thing for us, because we were inside the bubble and we were at field level, so this was an indoor practice because the weather sucked, as it's sucked for a long time. The most interesting thing is to be able to watch the coaches coach. Like I said, you don't even know 3/4 of the guys running around out there. And I host the Next Pats podcast, Tom. I should know just about every single rookie that's on this roster or been signed, but I don't, especially these tryout guys. So, and especially since you don't even know what numbers, you haven't committed their numbers to memory. So watching Mike Vrabel in action, watching Doug Marrone in action, watching Josh McDaniels in action, those to me were the most interesting parts of the practice. And Vrabel and his energy and his just relentless coaching style, to me was fascinating to watch, because I didn't get to see those joint practices with the Titans a few years ago. I think it was 2019. The Patriots went down to Tennessee. So this was my first opportunity to really see him coaching in this kind of setting. And it was impressive because he was expending a lot of energy out there.
It's inevitable that we're going to compare Mike Vrabel and the 2025 Patriots to Gerard Mayo and the 2024 Patriots. Unfair as it may feel, Gerard became a friend over the years, the amount of time we spent together, but we're going to have to make that, again, if Jayson Tatum blows an Achilles and he's having a bad game, I'm not going to ignore that he had a bad game. If Gerard Mayo had a bad season in his first year as head coach, you're going to have to point that out too. It was not a good year. So let's contrast Mayo at the rookie minicamp and the minicamp with Vrabel, because last year you saw Mayo kind of just letting the game come to him. You know, he'd survey, he'd make himself available to position groups, but he was actually hard to find if I remember correctly. You didn't know which group he was with. And, you know, for a few reasons, I think he was learning. He was trying to survey, see what his coaches did, what he liked, what he didn't. And that whole approach was probably informed by the Crafts putting him in a position to coach a year earlier. So he wasn't going to be the big old swinging Richard out there and start screaming at people. He wanted to get a feel for what was going on and get in where he can fit in and figure out exactly how he wanted to correct guys. But there wasn't an urgency to minicamp. There wasn't an urgency to rookie minicamp. There was intensity at times in the drills. Oftentimes they practice their asses off, especially in the summer. But I think it's interesting that there's an urgency that we haven't seen really in a long, long, long time. You remember 2020 was a mulligan year and a COVID year. 2022 was, we don't need an offensive coordinator. We'll figure it out. Phil, who's supposed to be calling plays out here at minicamp? Why are you asking me who the play caller is? What are you, a fool? We'll figure it out. Everybody's going to take turns. No urgency. And I just think that this urgency that we might be seeing that you saw, I didn't, because I was playing golf, shooting an 82, also shot an 81 at Pinehurst 1, 84 at Pinehurst 3, 90 over at 90 over at Southern Hills, 89 at Tallamore. But all those things happened for me while you were watching the football. Did you notice that level of urgency, I guess? And again, it's friggin' rookie minicamp. Those guys are there to get yelled at, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I think assertiveness too, right? So when Vrabel goes into a drill, you know, what I remember from Mayo, and he probably picked this up from Belichick, you know, Bill would bounce around, and a lot of times he was observing. He was observing the players for sure, but he was observing the coaches coaching. And I think, you know, Mayo took sort of a similar approach from what I can remember, especially early in the season. When Vrabel goes over to a drill, for the most part, the one position group that I saw him go to where he just kind of observed, and it was for like 15 seconds, and then he was on, you know, you could almost see the thought bubble over his head, like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything that Doug Marrone isn't already telling these guys. So he let Doug Marrone handle the offensive line. But when he was with the defensive line, he's running the practice. He is the one who is got his hands on some defensive lineman's shoulder pads, and he's talking about hand placement, and he's talking to the rest of the group while they're standing there watching him. When he's doing special teams, punt coverage, he's the one who is the loudest voice. And Jeremy Springer, is the special teams coordinator, was with a different portion of the special teams people. I think he was doing some punt return. But, you know, it was Vrabel and John Stretch that were running the punt coverage part of the practice. So that to me was what seemed different, was not only is he bouncing around and not only is he available, he is the voice with all of these things. He can coach, it looks like, just about every position. And even with some of the other coaches, you know, whether it was Marrone or McDaniels or, you know, Todd Downing, who's the receivers coach, like these are all guys that have led rooms and led sides of the ball in McDaniels' case for many years. And so there's just an overall level of experience with this staff, even though they're new to this team and some of these coaches are new to each other, that last year's staff just didn't have in certain corners.
I wonder how different Vrabel is now at this rookie minicamp than he was in his first year as a head coach in Tennessee. Like, for a first-year head coach, it's always different. This is his second bite at the apple, just like the Patriots were Bill Belichick's second bite at the apple as a head coach. And it gives you a different perspective, I suppose. I've always thought, and I remember when Belichick was having his success, when you look back at the guys, whether it's Pete Carroll or Mike Shanahan, or it was a fairly long list of them, Andy Reid going to Kansas City. Guys in their second opportunity are oftentimes, they have a lot of lessons they brought with them in terms of how they're going to do things differently. I wonder how different he is now. I'm not saying that you would know, but that might be something we can ask him later on. How's your bedside manner different now than it was when you were a first-year head coach first time? How do you like that, Phil?
That's a great question, and I don't know. Was he more willing? Like Mayo was, I think, wanting to give his coaches leeway. They were running their rooms or they were running their phase of the team, and I think he wanted to defer to those guys. And I can remember him talking about, this would be a little bit different sort of head coach relationship, but he would talk about the front office and he would acknowledge, hey, like those guys are the experts in what they do. So I'm going to allow the experts to do what they have in terms of expertise. And so, I'm not saying Vrabel doesn't also feel that way, but he was very involved, at least in this situation where it's rookie minicamp and you're let's be honest, you're probably teaching the very basic fundamentals of what a head coach and what a team is looking for. So maybe as we get deeper into training camp, he'll be more hands off and it'll be more of that observation role. But for this one practice that we had access to, he was a busy man.
And we'll roll in one observation that actually hints that though it was just at this one practice, it's continuing along. We heard from Milton Williams on Tuesday. Patriots big ticket defensive tackle had this to say about Mike Vrabel's bedside manner during a conditioning run.
I say like the first week we was out there running and Coach Vrabel called me out in front of everybody, which I like. So he called me out, let me know like, hey, like you gonna be here. You need to like, set the standard. And after that, it's been like, okay. So I've been trying to make sure I'm doing that every day. Every day I come in, just trying to put my best foot forward and go from there.
So it's not just a rookie thing, Phil. You're the one who kind of got Milt going on that.
Yeah. It was interesting to hear not only how Vrabel handled, as you said, a big ticket item. This guy's the highest paid player in franchise history. But how Williams responded. So basically what happened was he went on to explain it a little bit in more detail later in the press conference. What he was describing is something I would call a shuttle run. So you're starting at the goal line, you're going out, and you're coming back. And you have to do all that in he didn't tell us how long the distance was, but you have to do it in a certain period or a certain amount of time. And usually it's position specific, right? The linemen have more time to do it than the corners. And so the way he was describing it was he went out, he was coming back. They're probably yelling out the time is my guess, but he knew he had plenty of time to cross the line in time. He wasn't going to fail. And so he kind of coasted those last few yards. And that's what Vrabel didn't like. Even though he was going to check the box. Mm-hmm. It was, no, you need to empty the tank. You need to set the standard. If you're going to be here, right, it's voluntary, but if you're going to be here, set the standard for the rest of these guys. You're a star on this team. You're the highest paid guy on this team. And I liked Williams' response and that he likes it and that, he respects it. And the fact that happened early on has now pushed him to really try to give everything he's got on every rep when they're doing this off-season conditioning stuff. So that can have not a big impact on Williams for sure, Tom, because he's going to be asked to play more here in New England than he was in Philly. So just getting him in the right kind of shape moving forward will matter, but also just the impact that it can have on others. All those stories we heard over the years about Tom Brady and pushing himself as the superstar of that team, of the greatest to ever do it, highest paid guy on the team, that really made an impact on his teammates. And so it was fun to hear Williams talk about how he hopes to be that guy for this group moving forward.
All right, so good news on that Williams front, good news on another Williams front. Let's retreat to the rookie minicamp and talk a little bit about some of the things you were able to observe. Again, shorts, T-shirts. But Kyle Williams did a pretty good job from the reporting I saw you did.
Yeah, made a really nice leaping grab along the sideline at the end of the practice, a little bit earlier in the practice, ran a dig and kind of wrestled the ball away from a safety. He might have gotten blown up had it been in pads and had there been real contact, but, showed some strength in his hands. He has small hands, and he had some drops issues at times at Washington State, but showed some strong hands in that instance. And he certainly, he looks fast, Tom. I mean, that's, one thing that from all these camps that you and I have watched over the years when there are no pads involved, the guys that are the most electric movers can sometimes stand out in these settings, right? And so his speed just off the line, on that leaping catch that he had on the sideline, the corner is playing off him by about 10 yards. And yet he gets off the line with such acceleration, the corner has to bail another 10 yards just to make sure that, he's doing his best not to get beat. And when Williams throws on the brakes, there's 7-8 yards of separation there, and it makes it a relatively easy play. So, the question for me with Williams will be the hands for sure, since that was something that showed up in college. And just his ability to get in and out of his breaks. As fast as he is and as quick as he is at the line of scrimmage, do they ask him to run any of these option routes or even on some of these comebacks and these curls and these hitches? Like, how long does it take him to go from really fast straight line guy to slowing down and stopping and coming back to the ball? Because that can really be a separator in terms of who's able to get open and who isn't. So if it takes him 5-6 steps to slow down, stop, and come back, against quicker corners, that's not going to help him all that much. So I'm just curious to see how he handles some of those routes that McDaniels, I think, will ask him to run in the near future. But he was on the outside. He was playing that X spot, as Hoyer told us before the draft. He was not really in the slot. He looked like an outside guy to me.
It's interesting, too, because we could flip. Once a guy is signed by the Patriots, it's good news. So Stefon Diggs formerly could have been a pain in the ass. Now he's a great resource because he's such a good route runner. And he is a guy who can chop his steps and change direction. And that's what, I've been told is he's such a good technician. And I'm being sarcastic a little bit about, guy gets here. It's like, what problems? He was a great signing. And it is. It could be a good signing. Here's all the reasons Stefon Diggs could be a good signing. And there are more in this camp probably than could be a bad signing. But that's another one that you don't talk about is his precision as a route runner. Diggs could be something that either directly is taught to Williams by Diggs or he just kind of gleans how to do it. So that'd be a good guy for him to watch, right?
No question. Yeah, I was actually just talking to an offensive coach who worked with Diggs earlier in his career, and he says he still has this, even though he's not really an outside guy anymore, not the way he used to be. He was always really impressed by Diggs's stride length and his ability to maintain his stride length and his pad level to the point where it made him a really unpredictable route runner. So he would always come off the line with the same sort of consistent speed and acceleration and aggressiveness and body posture and stride length to really threaten corners. And then he could do so many different things off of that. I think that to me is a physical gift. I wonder if that can be taught, Tom, even though he was Diggs, I think it was a 5th round pick. So he wasn't like such an electric athlete that he had to be like a day one guy. But that to me is a very specific physical talent that he has had for a long time that I wonder, if they can tap into that with Williams and if that's something that can be learned.
You also mentioned in your coverage that big old Jack Conley was a hoss. Just an immovable object out there. He was the offensive lineman taken out of BC. What'd you see from him and any other guys that you can fill us in on?
Yeah, I mean,
this is on the next Pats podcast too, folks. So if you've already listened to that, this is just me asking Phil because I was out. And for all the people who only listen to us, should listen to the next Pats. But happy to have you here, and that's why we have Phil.
Well, and this is the kind of stuff we would just be talking about anyway when you come back from vacation. And so I'm glad we're recording it. But Conley, he's 6'7", 330. So that's the thing that stands out first. Even with Will Campbell there, who's 6'6", 315-ish, 320-ish. Jack Conley's clearly the biggest guy out there. And there was one point where, again, they're not wearing shoulder pads, but they do have these chest pads that they're wearing or they can throw on their arms. And the offensive linemen were working on double team blocks at one point. And so everybody has to take a turn being the defensive lineman and being the one who is getting blocked by the double team. And so Conley, when he had his chance, to be a blocker and he and Campbell working together specifically, like those poor, offensive linemen functioning as defensive linemen were like on skates and, flying out of the picture essentially if you're trying to take a little video like I am on my iPhone. But when he was the defensive guy, Tom, Conley, he gets his turn to wear the pad. Like, he's not giving any ground. Like, that was what was maybe the most impressive thing, was not anything he did as a blocker, but as somebody who was absorbing blocks. Like, this guy could probably play defensive tackle. He's that big. He had 2 large humans trying to hit him and move him backward, and he was the one guy that there wasn't much give right away. And so that'll be interesting. I saw him play left guard. That to me is the one obvious spot that is still up for grabs on the Patriots offensive line. And who knows, Layden Robinson, I would think, is ahead of him on the depth chart whenever training camp starts. I would guess Cole Strange, same deal. But maybe Jack Conley is somebody who can work his way into that mix. He played for Doug Marrone at BC. He played for Bill O'Brien. You assume he's a smart guy. He's obviously a massive individual. And so if they're going to be this big, wear you down kind of run game, downhill, duo blocks, power, with massive human being Mike Owenu on one side of Garrett Bradbury and maybe massive human being Jack Conley on the other side with, two big tackles and Campbell and Morgan Moses, like that's an offensive line that could really wear on some people.
That's a huge offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he could juggle Cole Strange. 298 pounds of Cole Strange. Any other things that stood out?
Yeah, I do have to mention he's become a bit of a next Pats favorite. There are two. Efton Chism is one, the Eastern Washington undrafted rookie, slot guy, 5'10", quicker than fast. Saw him make a couple of catches. Saw him get some one-on-one time, Tom, with Josh McDaniels. So, they made they made a real commitment as far as, undrafted commitments go contractually to Chism to make sure they got him. So that was one that stood out to me, just kind of seeing those interactions. And the other one was Larison. There was no Travion Henderson, Tom, at this first practice. It looked like on social media that he was there and present for the second practice on Saturday. But no Henderson and not many other running backs in this rookie class, period. So Larison, undrafted rookie out of UC Davis, set all kinds of records at UC Davis. We just did a podcast with his head coach, Tim Plow, on Next Pats, and he was telling us how, Larison turned down real money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, to go play in the SEC. And he said, no, this is my team, and wanted to finish out his career at UC Davis, and did so, and they ended up having a great year, and they made a little run in the FCS playoffs, and he was able to do a lot in terms of touching the football for sure. But they also wanted to make sure that he got a bunch of special teams reps, because if he got drafted, it was going to be a, probably 6th or 7th round pick or as an undrafted guy. And if that's the case, you got to play special teams. So they just wanted to be able to put it on tape and, give him a few opportunities every game to play on punt coverage, for instance. And he was a maniac about it. Like, he ended up leading the team in special teams tackles in the phases that he played. And, they'd be playing in blowouts, and he'd still be running out there for punt coverage. And the coaching staff would be like, bro, get on the sidelines. What are you doing? No, I'm on the punt coverage team. Like, this is part of my job with this team. I'm going to go do this, even though, he's one of the best players in school history. So he got a lot of work with Henderson out and caught a few balls. And it would not stun me if he ends up making this roster, Tom.
I think it would be less than stunning. It might be teetering towards more surprising if he doesn't make it, given the amount of money the Patriots did guarantee him when they signed him as an undrafted free agent, right?
Yeah, I have to double.
Significant amount.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
it was
insane, but
right for an undrafted rookie. I think it was significant. I think it was approaching the $200,000 mark.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it guarantees him a spot or anything like that, but it does show you that they wanted him. He likes the fit there. Yeah, there was a pursuit, and if he can play special teams, to me the comp would be Rex Burkhead, who played a lot. You remember, he played a lot of special teams. He had a real role offensively, but he had to play special teams. He was like the third running back. So that to me is kind of the perfect role for a guy like this. They're similar sizes. I think they're similar in terms of their games. They can pass protect. They can run between the tackles. They can catch the football. So, he has to do it obviously at a high level to earn those comps to a guy who played, a long time in the league and had a lot of success in Rex Burkhead, but that would be the kind of trajectory I would envision for him if he's going to make this team.
All right. We're going to be back with you later in the week, probably tomorrow, probably Thursday morning, talking schedule talk, because the schedule will be released Wednesday night. Phil and I will be doing a YouTube live special at 8:00 as the schedule's coming out and unveiled. So Phil and I will go through all the wins and losses. And I was on WEEI today with Adam Jones and Rich Keefe at noon, as I always am on Tuesdays at noon, Tommy Tuesdays. And my God, their home schedule is a friggin' walk in the park. Those guys went through it and said, should be a win, 50-50, no way. They ended up with 8 should-be wins 4 50-50s and whatever was left there, 4 no ways.
Wow.
So if you split your 50-50s, you're a 10-win team. A lot of conversation about the Atlanta Falcons, whether or not that should be a definite win. I think it was ruled a definite win. Be that as it may, we'll be with you for that. But we would be remiss if we did not talk a little Bill Belichick here for a moment. And I really don't care to discuss Jordan Hudson and the 68-year age gap or whatever it is there and the relationship. That is what it is. Do what you want. Boat floating, whatever does it for you. But I think the more interesting question is now, what are the odds that Bill ever coaches in the NFL again? Because my feeling is now it's next to zero. Because I remember saying late in 2023, before he got fired, or the mutual parting of the ways, I consistently said that when people talked about there's going to be a line around the block for Bill Belichick, I said, no, there's not. This is a guy who is going to come in, want everything done his way, costs $25 million a year, has a horrendous record of drafting in the last few years, had the greatest player of all time sitting under his nose, ushered him out the door, has now alienated his first-round rookie quarterback, made horrendous coaching personnel decisions on offense, and is hard to get along with. He's also 72, so it's not like you're going to put him in and you're going to build towards something. You have to have a turnkey situation for him, and he's a lot. So I wasn't surprised that Bill didn't get a job in the least. I was a little surprised he only had one opportunity. I thought that he should go into the media for a year. I said, go in, change your image, bounce your grandkids on your knee, have yourself a year off to get your shit together. And that's what he did. But now going to UNC, when he realized, I think, that there still were no takers in the NFL. And the way it's unfolded, Christ, Phil, it's only been like 15 months since he left here. Doesn't it seem like it's 3 years with all the shit that's going on?
It does.
It's just the longest. So, I mean, he was ubiquitous last offseason in terms of doing media stuff. And he's kind of done nothing but step on rakes. And the group around him, Mike Lombardi has been terrific on our podcasts. But I think that the presentation of Bill and Lombardi and Steve Belichick and this cadre of people who are going to be down there with Bill, teams are going to, presume that, okay, wherever Bill goes, this group is going. Get my microphone. This group is going with it. So, and there's just a lack of judgment, I think, that's accompanied what he's doing. And when you think about the Super Bowl era coaches, you got Shula, Knoll, Landry, Lombardi, Walsh, Gibbs. That's a big-ass Mount Rushmore. That's the Appalachians of great coaches from the Super Bowl era. I don't think any one of them did anything post-greatness to muddy the waters with their legacy the way Bill has. And I just don't think he's going to be back in the NFL. End of story. You?
I agree. I think that ship has sailed. I think it probably, Tom, has sailed for all the reasons you mentioned even before all this Jordan Hudson stuff, but this is the reason we're talking about it now, and it has to, right? For owners that are looking at this and would acknowledge Bill Belichick's incredible football mind. You also understand as an owner that your head coach is, like it or not, is the face of your franchise and is going to be handling a lot of the public relations responsibilities. And if you're winning the way Belichick was here in New England for a long time, you're obviously going to be willing to swallow whatever PR losses come your way over time. And you might even learn to love them and love the icy glares and the snorting into the microphone and all those sorts of things, if it's going well. But you can't guarantee that anymore based on how it ended here in New England, to your point. And do you really want to hand a turnkey operation over to somebody who now, I think, has just opened up the door for so many questions about not only his judgment in football matters, but outside of those? Because it goes beyond, if you're the head coach of a team, it does go beyond just the football stuff. And I don't, with his age being what it is, I don't see anybody being willing to fork over the kind of dough it would require and the commitment in terms of the time to give him the program. I mean, all these owners, Tom, when they hire a coach, they're not assuming they're going to have to make a change 2 years from now, right? They're going into it thinking, well, this is my guy, and this is going to be my guy for the next 5, 10, who knows how many years, like, because I just made a great decision. You can't go into that relationship with Bill Belichick with the same sort of mindset. So I think he probably was not going to be coaching even before all of this stuff at UNC and with Jordan Hudson. And I just feel as though the last 15 months have kind of locked it up that he's not working his way back. Unless, Tom, the one sliver I might leave open for that possibility to actually transpire would be, I guess, like, if North Carolina just destroys people. If they somehow have an unbelievable season, would some owner be willing to bite and say, I don't care what he's doing. The guy clearly is got this sport figured out, so let's bring him aboard. Like, I guess maybe, but I would say that's a great point. Highly unlikely.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if he just turns and absolutely rototills the entire ACC and then eviscerates Alabama and Ohio State and looks like Soupy Sales every time he does a press conference and people, this guy's great again. Wow, he's so funny. I love Jordan Hudson. And everybody wants a bite at the apple and, bring him up here. Next thing you know, he's coaching. Who would he be coaching? The Raiders. Goes to the Raiders. But you're right. That's the only finger left on the, if he wants to. And I think Bill's at the point now where he went to North Carolina and it was like, well, Bill said, screw you to the NFL. The NFL said, screw you to Bill. Before it was more of a, hey, well, you too. Sorry. Bleep that out for the kids. But yeah, that's the story here. We spend all this time on our shows and on the radio and everybody I talk to. What do you make of Jordan Hudson, Bill and the girlfriend there? Don't care. But what I do care about is, having covered the guy for 25 years and covered the NFL, is he's never going to coach in the NFL again. That's what's pertinent to me. He went from the best coach in the NFL to the post-Brady swoon to an ignominious ending here in New England to now having to swallow his pride, go to UNC, say he wasn't swallowing his pride, and then proceeding to make an absolute mess of it since he's been down there. So, what a takeaway we've. All right, Phil. It's going to do it for this podcast. We'll see you folks again. What we'll probably do, to be candid, to be honest, if we're being honest here, we have a lot of people in the building who say that. If we're being honest here,
TBH.
Yeah, if we're being honest here, why would we be anything other than honest? If we're being honest, we're probably going to repurpose our little live show from 8:00 tomorrow and turn that into a podcast for Thursday.
Oh, I would assume. Yeah, I would.
Facts.
I would assume so.
Do I hear applause?
That's applause. You're getting a standing O for that take.
Yeah.